This is the Multiorgasmic Mama, the podcast for high-achieving moms to have sex worth putting the energy in for. I'm Tilly Storm, a holistic sex and intimacy coach, and it's my mission to help you want sex again, to have better orgasms, and to feel confident and sexy so you experience more pleasure in the bedroom and beyond. Welcome back, mamas. I hope that when you read the title of today's episode, you were like, yes, Tilly, please take me to the Holy Grail of female orgasm. Or you may have read the title and been like, yeah, I don't know about that. That seems really far off to me, being able to have cervical orgasms, Tilly. Is that even possible? Well, my dear, many women don't even know where or what their cervix is. So we're going to have a little lesson on that in just a second. But seeing as the cervix wasn't even in medical textbooks until about the last 30-ish years, no wonder women don't even know about it. There's a lot of skepticism out there around cervical pleasure because so few women actually experience this. But this isn't because they can't. It's just that because you don't know how. So before I move on, what is the cervix and where is it? The cervix is the bottom of the uterus or the top of the vaginal canal. It's like a donut with a little hole in the middle called the cervical os. The cervix is extremely dense energy and tissue, and it is right at the root at the base of the uterus. So this is at the cervical os. This is what opens in order for a baby to be born, and it also opens a little bit when you menstruate, and it closes, but it never closes all the way. If you have had an IUD or you currently have an IUD, your IUD string will be hanging out of your cervical os. All right, so now that everyone knows where their cervix is and what it is in the first place, let's talk about whether or not this is even a real thing. Well, I will tell you from personal experience it is, and many other women's experiences, but if you are one to be so inclined to science, let me just tell you that a 2004 study found that women who've had severed spinal cords from accidents could actually achieve orgasm from cervical stimulation. That's because the cervix is innervated by 3 different nerves, including, and I would say the most important part here is the vagus nerve, which is also connected to your heart and your throat space. So just because 30% of women don't orgasm from penetration, or whatever the number is now, I feel like they change it every year. This doesn't mean that you can't. It usually means that you just don't know how to experience cervical pleasure. You don't know about the cervix. You don't know what's possible. You've been lied to your entire life that the clitoris is the end-all be-all of all orgasms, and you just don't know what you don't know. Well, I'm here to tell you otherwise, hot mamas. If you haven't experienced cervical pleasure, it's not because you can't. It's because you haven't fully unlocked your pleasure potential in this area. You haven't explored this part of your body enough to know what does work for you. And because of this, you aren't able to teach your partner or communicate to your partner effectively what that might be. Maybe you experience pain there. Maybe you experience tightness. And for a lot of you, it just feels numb. You don't feel anything. Well, there are many reasons for this that I'll get into in a second. But before I get to that, I want to share also that energetically, emotionally, and spiritually speaking, the cervix is the location of the root chakra in women. It is the home of Kundalini energy. And maybe that doesn't mean anything to you, and that's okay. But for those of you that does mean something to, then you'll see how important the cervix is. And even if you don't have a cervix because it's been removed, you can still connect to cervical energy because you always have the energetic blueprint of the cervix inside of you. Many women experience tons of issues with the cervix and modern day pap smears or the HPV virus. All of this sort of stuff can affect cervical health. One of my clients just recently shared a really amazing episode on a podcast called Medicine Stories, and the episode is episode number 90. So if you've had cervical issues, if you currently have cervical wellness issues, tuning into that episode is going to be a big mind blower for you. And you'll also get her take on cervical wellness, which is really cool. So one thing that is really important in experiencing cervical pleasure is to understand that in traditional Chinese medicine and the Taoist philosophy, the cervix is the acupressure point for the heart, which makes the cervix a record keeper. And the lady on this episode also points that out in episode 90 of the medicine stories that I was sharing with you. A record keeper just means that your cervix is the keeper of big and often traumatic events such as sexual abuse and trauma, body hate, miscarriage, abortion, heartbreak, or even just emotional trauma. I always say that the cervix is like a sponge. The vaginal canal is as well. These parts of our body absorb all of our past experiences, and if they aren't positive experiences, well, this often results in a numb cervix or a cervix that only experiences pain and not pleasure. So to experience cervical pleasure and orgasms, the key is to open your heart and your throat and your mouth just as much as your pussy. And that's because of the heart-throat-cervix connection from the vagus nerve. You can look at a map of the vagus nerve and see how it runs from right about your ears down into your throat and into your heart, and then it jumps into your gut and your cervix. So if you open your heart and you open your mouth, through breath, sound, and movement, like I'm going to share with you in a little bit, you can also open and activate your cervix. When your cervix is fully open and you start to activate this part of yourself, it's literally like another life force awakens inside of you. It's kind of like being on psychedelics or something, because an activated cervix, it has this way of making colors more vibrant, life more sweet, the present moment more easy to connect with. In tantric philosophy, this makes so much sense because an activated cervix means an activated kundalini energy. And with an activated kundalini, it's almost like there is a heartbeat to your cervix itself, like it actually pulses. Now, while everyone else is raving about their 3-second clitoral orgasms in Cosmo and trying to get you to believe that penetrative orgasms aren't even real or possible and that G-spot doesn't even exist, you may start to be connecting the dots as to why the cervical orgasm is the best kept secret to female orgasms. That's because it not only feels absolutely amazing and it lasts for days, but it has a way of waking you up spiritually and emotionally, hot mama, of connecting you more deeply to the truth of who you are. So no freaking wonder they don't want you to know about it and that they didn't put it in the textbooks until about 30 years ago. Oh my God. If you have never experienced cervical orgasm, you may be wondering, well, Tilly, that's great. Sounds wonderful. But what the hell does it feel like if it lasts for days? Well, it is not like a clitoral orgasm at all, where you feel pleasure and then that pleasure builds up and it builds up enough to where it results in a fireworks sensation and then it's gone in a couple of seconds. Oh, no, my dear. This is nothing like a cervical orgasm. A cervical orgasm is like waves of pleasure crashing into the deepest part of you, and it can last literally for days. It's like you feel that sensation inside, and once it's awake, it's like you can tap into it at any given moment. Sometimes you'll be brought back to that feeling over the course of a couple of days after you have it for the first time. So it can feel very vulnerable. It can feel very emotionally open. It can feel very spiritual. You might have a spiritual connection to God or goddess herself. Who knows what might happen? So that's why I say it's a lot like taking psychedelics, because often it can lead to some sort of spiritual awakening or a deeper connection to who you are and the truth of who you are. So with these types of orgasms, you are not going to be able to have these in a casual sex sort of situation. Or if you are in a relationship, you are not going to be able to have them with your partner in a relationship where you don't feel fully safe or fully seen by your partner. If you want to experience cervical orgasms, you're either going to need to practice them on your own or with a partner who you fully trust and have great communication with. If you lack the communication and the connection, you're not going to be able to open your heart enough to experience this type of orgasmic glory because there is so much more to it. And the 4 steps to cervical dearmoring and orgasmic pleasure, finally, we are here, are: number 1, to give yourself lots and lots of time. And what I mean by lots is 2 things. 1, you need at least 30 minutes to fully get yourself turned on and aroused. So you're going to want lots of time to drop into your body to let this be a special experience. This is not a quickie type of orgasmic experience. You can't go out and have no quickie type of cervical orgasm. Ain't gonna happen. This is an erotic, gourmet sex date night with yourself or with your partner. I suggest trying this with yourself first before trying it out with a partner, because knowing where your cervix is and what feels good and what doesn't is going to help your partner learn more about what works for you. So if you want to bring your partner into giving you cervical pleasure, that's awesome. That's great. I highly recommend it. But you're going to need to give them space to explore and locate that part of your body first without any pressure, so they know where it is and how it feels inside of you before you start to train them on what feels good to you. Likely you don't know much about your own cervix, so how is your partner really going to know anything about this? So start with yourself. So the key to step one is to give yourself at least 30, better if it's 45 minutes, to self-pleasure. But the second part of this, giving yourself lots of time, is understanding that it might take months of training your body before it's ever going to happen for you. This is not something that will generally come quick and fast and easy. This is something that your body has to awaken and sensitize to. And because this is like the queen of all orgasmic experiences for women, it can take time to remove those blocks to pleasure in order to get there. Step number 2 to cervical dearmoring and pleasure and orgasm is to physically activate your cervix by starting with blended pleasure with a glass or a stone dildo. So you're going to use a glass or a stone dildo so that this dildo is all the way pressed up against your cervix, and you're also going to use clitoral stimulation with your other hand. Why do you do this? Well, this is very important because for many of you, your cervix is going to feel numb or painful, or like there's a lot of tension there. So you're going to begin to rewire your body that when this part of you is touched, when you touch your clitoris, because likely you do have access to pleasure from your clitoris, you're showing your cervix that, oh, when we touch this, it feels good. Because likely your only experience of your cervix being touched is through way too fast and too hard penetration that actually hurts you, or by gynecological exams that are traumatic. Or surgeries that are traumatic to the cervix. So once you begin to do blended pleasure with the clitoris and the glass or stone dildo inside, you're making a sensate focus mind-body connection that when I touch my cervix, I associate it with pleasure from my clitoris, right? So you're building new neural pathways in your brain that touching cervix means pleasure. All right, now, you do not want to go hard and fast at all. So this is nothing, when you are starting with the glass or the stone dildo, you're going to be going so slowly. Some women will even prefer that they just hold the stone or the glass dildo right at the cervix as they stroke and touch their clitoris, because that feels really good and exquisite. And other women are going to find that maybe they don't feel much there, or they're not sensitized to the pressure from the dildo quite yet, and they want to do some slow and gentle thrusting. So you can do that, but just go so slow and so gentle. The cervix is not going to be activated by hard and fast anything. She ain't having it. Trust me, it doesn't work. It's probably just going to hurt you. So go slow. And the more that you do this over and over again, the more sensitive that you will become at the cervix, and the more you'll release any tension or any issues that you are storing there, any traumas, any abuses, any bad memories, negative experiences, all that sort of stuff. So using the glass or stone dildo is really important also if you want to experience cervical orgasms and pleasure with your partner, because it's much more similar to experiencing a cervical orgasm with your partner than using your fingers or a vibrator. So you want to train your body to ultimately be able to experience this with a partner. So masturbating and self-pleasuring this way will train you to have a better, more rich and pleasure-filled cervical orgasmic partnered sexual experience. So over time, You will not need the clitoral stimulation as you build the sensitivity and more activation in your cervix to the point that you can simply orgasm from the cervix alone without having any clitoral stimulation. So the only reason I recommend using the blended pleasure as part of this physical activation of the cervix is to begin to create that mind-body connection that when I touch cervix, there's pleasure there. So if you do experience pain, then that is a sign that you need to de-armor. And I'm going to tell you exactly how to do that in step 4. Step 3 to cervical de-armoring and pleasure and eventually orgasm is to energetically activate your cervix with the jade egg. So you're going to physically activate it with blended pleasure and the glass or the stone dildo, and you're going to energetically activate the cervix with a jade egg. So whereas the dildo is going to open your cervix physically, the jade egg will help you open your cervix and awaken and activate it to where it starts pulsing pleasure and aliveness in your body. When you begin to awaken your cervix, you'll probably start feeling butterfly-like sensations or like a buzzing sensation happening down there like Amber did. She came on and did an interview with me, one of my former clients, on episode 186. And she described this experience perfectly, that she was sitting down at a restaurant one day. And mind you, this woman had 4 kids. She has 4 little kids. She was sitting at a restaurant and she just started to notice this buzzing sensation in her cervix. She's like, oh my God, it's alive. Yes, your cervix really is alive. It is the depth of who you are. So if you've got any masking or hiding of who you are going on, then cervix is going to feel not very alive. But if you're fully owning your truth, if you're fully tapped into the truth of who you are, she's going to begin to awaken up and that Kundalini energy starts to be activated. And once it's activated, mama, the great thing is it don't ever go away. Yes, you always have access to this. Once it's activated, it's always activated. So you want to use the jade egg to activate the energetics of the cervix. I also would describe my cervical and Kundalini activation a lot like Amber did. I started to notice the buzzing sensation. I was like, when she was telling me this, I was like, yes, that's exactly how it felt for me. So this is very common. I hear this in other people as well. So you can activate the cervix energetically by doing regular jade egg practices all the way up where the jade egg is sitting at the top, all the way at the cervix, so where it's touching the cervix. The jade egg can also help you de-armor and replace this area where there might be pleasure or tension with more pleasure-filled positive energy. So even if you are just putting the jade egg up there and self-pleasuring with the jade egg inserted, you're going to begin to energetically activate your cervix over time. I think this is the part of cervical pleasure and orgasm that is completely misunderstood and that science will probably never understand or catch up with, is that there is an energetic component to cervical orgasm. And if you don't understand it, if you don't believe in it, well, you don't really need to believe in it for it to happen. A lot of people don't. I definitely have worked with some clients who are very into science and who are doctors and who are nurses, and they are very much in that mind of, science is science and, spirituality, we can't prove any of that. Well, sure, you don't need to believe in it for it to happen, I promise you. I had another client that came on and shared how she had her first cervical orgasm. Actually, she wrote me a testimonial and she said, Tilly, I didn't even believe any of the stuff that you were talking about. Like, it was really hard for me to trust that any of this would work because I'm so science-minded, that any of the spiritual, energetic stuff I just kind of like glossed over, but I did all the practices anyway. And now I realize that, oh my God, this is exactly what was missing from my sex life, was like a connection to the energy and the energetics behind it. So it really does matter. All right, the fourth and the final step to cervical de-armoring and pleasure and orgasm is to de-armor with breath, sound, and movement. So as you are self-pleasuring with the glass dildo or your stone dildo, you may notice areas of tension, numbness, or even pain. For this, you will need to de-armor the cervix by breathing straight into the center of your chest. And as you're breathing in, you're going to visualize how the cervix, the heart, and the throat are all connected via the vagus nerve. So I want you to go Google the vagus nerve and go look at a picture of it. And as you inhale into your chest, you're going to feel a pearl ball of light connecting the cervix to your heart and your throat. And then you're going to exhale as if you could exhale from the cervix itself. You're going to exhale that pearl ball of light all the way back down into your cervix. So as you inhale, you're envisioning the pearl ball of light traveling from your cervix to your chest. And then you're exhaling, you're visualizing the pearl ball of light traveling back down from your chest to your cervix. And as you exhale, each time you exhale, you're going to sound fully out of your mouth anything that wants to come out. You have to have sound freedom. If you're keeping it all in, you're not releasing. As I always say, there are only blocks to your pleasure. It's not that you don't have access to it. It's just that you're blocked from access to it. So you have to release what is in the way of pleasure. It's not that you need to experience something new. It's just that you need to come back to your natural state to remember how you always had access to it in the first place. So sounding is giving you the opportunity to release any pain, tension, numbness that you might be feeling. Open your freaking mouth, mama. Open your mouth. If you don't open your mouth, you're not releasing. You're not letting it go. So this tension, this holding, whatever you're holding inside, if you breathe, if you sound, and if you move the body with these sensations of tension or numbness, whatever you're experiencing, you are moving the energy out. You're becoming an energy Jedi, and you're moving that shit and you're transmuting it so that it's no longer an energetic blueprint inside of your body. Whatever that trauma was you experienced, whatever that conditioning was you experienced that's keeping you from the pleasure, if you breathe, sound, and move through it, it will eventually dissipate and you will transmute it. So keep breathing, keep sounding. Only do as much as what you can stay present for. So this can get really intense. You might feel really emotional. You might cry. You might start laughing. Whatever it is you're feeling, just stay present. So only do as much as you can stay fully present and in your body for. If you start to leave your body or it feels too much, you simply stop and you come back to pleasure. So you do want to push yourself to an edge, but you don't want to push yourself over the edge. All right, mama. So those are the 4 steps. Give yourself lots of time. Physically activate your cervix with blended pleasure in a glass or stone dildo. Energetically activate your cervix with a jade egg. And de-armor with breath, sound, and movement. So once you've done enough self-pleasure sessions to the point where you don't feel any pain or tension, this is when you'll want to introduce what you've learned with your partner. So start exploring where's the pleasure here, because once you move through the pain and the tension and the numbness, you'll be available for pleasure. So discover what strokes you like, what feels best, so you can effectively communicate that to your partner. Now, my loves, if you want to experience cervical orgasms, you'll need either a glass or stone dildo and a jade egg to give yourself lots of time to get there. I do sell those on my website. You can purchase a jade egg or an obsidian stone dildo from my online shop at www.tillystorm.com/store. The link is in the show notes. You do have to type in the www. And you can download my How to Start a Jade Egg Practice e-guide from the website as well. And for those of you who purchase the stone dildo, I'll even send you my dearmoring practice to try out on your own. So I only have 3 obsidian dildos left. I always keep my jade eggs in stock, but once I'm done selling the obsidian dildos, I'm not doing that anymore. So get them while they last. And if you enjoyed this episode, please 5-star rate and review the Multiorgasmic Mama podcast on iTunes. I would super appreciate it. We haven't had a review in a little while. I know these things are often hard for people to talk about, but you don't have to use your real name. You don't even have to put a name. You can create anything and say whatever you want to, whatever it is about your name that you want to say, and you can still post a review. I would super appreciate it. See you next week, my friends. Chances are, if you hear my voice right now, you might be a woman who struggles with lack of libido or desire, doesn't find sex that fulfilling or satisfying, or that's so busy and in your head that it's really challenging to drop in and actually enjoy sex when it happens. Yes, this podcast is here to help you with that. In each episode, I will be sharing everything I know to help you experience more pleasure in your sex life. But let's face it, simply obtaining more information isn't going to change anything about your sex life. The thing is, being a high-achieving mom who's already in her head a lot and is strapped for time and energy, more information is not what you need, sweetheart. Alternatively, learning to rewire your body and your brain so you can get out of your head, be in your body, and enjoy yourself is required. If you're really serious and committed to doing the embodiment practices, the somatic and the nervous system reprogramming, so you can experience epic sex in the bedroom and beyond, then I invite you to consider my Sensually Embodied Woman program. This is my signature program to teach and to coach high-achieving moms like you. And it's how over 70 women have experienced a massive increase in their sexual desire and pleasure in the bedroom and beyond in less than 4 months. Through the program, you'll get deep, intimate coaching from me for 16 weeks, where I'll be able to personally guide you through your specific sex life and relationship struggles. And you'll also instantly join a sisterhood of other high-level women going through the same things to support you on the journey. On top of that, in addition to all of the coaching, the community, the accountability, the teachings, and the audio-guided embodiment practices and meditations, when you join the Sensually Embodied Woman program, you'll get lifetime access to our member library with new bonus content that we're continually adding in. And by the way, the program does help you to become a multiorgasmic mama too. So yes, you can rely on just the information I share with you here, and yes, you may get the pleasure education you never got growing up. You may grow the ovaries enough to break the ice with your partner and have a meaningful conversation about your sex life, or you could take the shortcut and get the support you're going to need right off the bat. So if you're ready to commit to doing what it takes to have epic sex and pleasure in the next 4 months, then click the link in the show notes and fill out an application for the Sensually Embodied Woman program, and you'll be on your way to joining my magical world of multi-orgasmic motherhood and fast-tracking your journey to a thriving sex life and relationship today. Once again, hit the link in the show notes to apply for the Sensually Embodied Woman, and I'll see you there in the program.